Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday drawing session with me, Frank Cho. There's my trusty Pentel mechanical pencil with zero point 0.7 HB millimeter lead and my kneaded eraser, which look like a piece of coal now. And here's my favorite paper to draw on, Strathmore Bristolboard 300 series with vellum surface. I love the vellum surface because it just grips the pencil really well. So today I decided to draw the Black Widow. Now, originally I was going to draw Black Cat, but then I realized that I actually drawn several Black Cats recently, and I was kind of getting tired of her. So anyway, I don't think I've ever drawn Black Widow in a long time. So the with Black Widow and Black Cat, you want a pose where she is kind of like crouching and kind of like almost like a like a gymnast, where she's kind of like low to the ground and where she's about to pounce on you. So you kind of want that pose. You don't want like a long upright stretched out pose where she's flying, because that's not her character or her power. So you want when you draw like Black Widow and Black Cat, you want kind of like a coiled spring. So with that in mind, I had the original pose I had in mind was so she's kind of like squatting, ready to pounce on someone, just ready for action. And as I said before, I originally was gonna draw Black Cat, but decided at the last minute to just draw Black Widow instead. And now the Black Widow I had in mind was Frank Miller's Black Widow, which was in the '80s during his Daredevil run, where she had this short haircut versus that long haircut back in the '60s when George Perez drew her, or back in the when George Perez drew her in the '70s and early '80s. Um, so like everything else, I've already have a pose in mind, and I start with the face because I've always draw like from face down. That's always been my sequence when it comes to drawing. So once I have the face down, I basically naturally go down the neck and figure out the orientation of the body. So with this pose, it's kind of tricky because when a woman is posing, they tend to get little kind of like kind of squat and kind of muscular, which isn't quite feminine. So you have to be very careful when drawing women kind of like low to the ground and squatting and kind of like crouching. There's the kneecap. There's the legs. And there's the lower portion of the leg, which is bent and tucked under the upper portion of the leg. So when I draw the hand, you can see that I kind of it's almost like I what's the good way to explain it? It's kind of like drawing a spatula. So I draw this kind of like a semi trapezoid kind of figure, and then I just add the lines out, radiating out from the end, like little fries, which is the fingers. That just gives me the general idea of the shape of the hand. I've always done that. I don't know why. It's just something that you just pick up as you keep drawing. You pick up little shortcuts and techniques. So there I am. I'm drawing essentially, very similar. The spatula for the main body of the hand, and then and fingers radiating out at the end point. So I wasn't happy with the figure. It was just a little bit too. The whole torso was a little bit elongated, and I thought the shoulder needed to be a little bit wider. So there you go. I kind of like shortened the overall torso. Because if I remember correctly, Natasha Romanoff, I think she is like a super spy with like a lot of gymnastic training. So she shouldn't be like a well, like a too big of a figure, you know. So she should be more like a, as I said before, like a coiled spring. And female gymnasts, they tend to be kind of tiny, tiny but powerful. So you can see as I'm drawing the second version of the overall body, how everything is kind of shortened, because the first time around it was everything was just too long and elongated, kind of like volleyball players. So I'm drawing the quad. There's a kneecap. And the calf muscle, and the feet, and the foot. So when I draw any kind of figure, I start off with the basically generic body shape, which tend to be very kind of like masculine, you know, because you're basically drawing where the muscle landmarks are, where how the muscle folds, where the muscle falls. And then once you have where all the muscle goes, then you start adding the female characteristics, you know, the attributes, you know, like the breasts and the skinny waist and the wide hips. So when you're drawing a female, you don't want to, definitely you do not want to give her like really big beefy arms. You just want to give her like a nice slender arms that kind of tapers into a graceful point. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to figure out how to the placement of the arm essentially, even though I have like a rough image in mind. So when I say I have a rough image, I literally do have like a rough image, and as I'm putting it down on paper, as I'm drawing, it becomes with each stroke I'm making it more clear. Just basically taking that rough image into more focus with each pencil stroke. So that's why, you know, like you see me erasing a lot. Again, you know, this is a pencil stage, so don't worry about making mistakes and needing to erase. I actually recommend it. It's very cathartic, you know, just erasing something. You know, it's just very, you know, because it's all about the process at this point. You know, process and the final image. But pencil stage is mainly more about the process than the final image. And so, yes, I kind of want her like where she's like squatting, and it's almost like she's kind of like about to get up and ready to like leap into action. Again, draw the arms kind of slender and tapered. Now, once I have the basic pose down, I'm going in and drawing the the female characteristics, like the boobs, the hips, the slender hand. So body language is important. I mean, depending on character, you really have to like focus on the body language. Now, like a pose like this, it doesn't work on like Phoenix or Captain Marvel, who are essentially big female Superman. They're just they're flying characters. When you have a pose like this, it should be more of a non-flying character, it's more urban character, jungle-like character, where they're kind of like stalking and stalking a prey. So I didn't like the face. I didn't like the tilt of the face and the angle. So I decided to kind of like turn the face a little bit more to the left. So where she's like kind of almost like looking over her shoulder. Adding the eye. Just kind of like just shifting everything a little bit over. Um, it basically makes the world of difference. I'm drawing the lips. So I like to draw the eyes and the lips first, if I can. Once I have those two body part down, the nose is pretty. The placement of the nose is pretty easy. So when I used to draw women, when I first started drawing women, they tend to look like guys with boobs and hips, and then and you just kind of like you know, you just keep at it until I felt really comfortable drawing females. So if you look at a lot of my college stuff and my stuff from my early 20s, you know, my female drawings weren't that hot, which is kind of funny because I'm kind of have a reputation being a really good pinup kind of guy. But if you saw my earlier stuff, it was kind of pretty funny, you know. So like, so I decided, to kind of like make the neck thinner because I realized that for whatever reason, that first pose during the first pass, I made her neck a little bit too thick. She had a little bit of a like a bull neck. Adding the nose. Yeah, so there you go. So once you have the eyes and the lips down, adding the nose is pretty fairly simple. Here's the funny part. As when I draw women, I subconsciously try to draw Linda Carter because Linda Carter was to me the woman. She was the woman that kind of like jump started my puberty when I watched Wonder Woman as a as a kid, like in first grade or something like that. So with that in mind, as I noticed that I was drawing this Black Widow's face, I realized that she looks a lot like Charlize Theron. who is another absolutely beautiful woman, Charlize Theron. I remember the first time I saw her. What was that movie? 2 Days in the Valley or something like that. When she just started working as an actress, I thought she was like a living Barbie doll. So I'm drawing that the Widow's Blast, that little arm bracelet stun gun that she has in the comic book. Yeah, since the paper is just completely taped to the drawing desk, I can't rotate the pencil. I mean the paper to draw that hand. Usually when I'm drawing hand, and actually when I'm drawing in general, I'm constantly like rotating the paper to get the right angle and all that. And this is when I do these drawing demo, I'm at a great disadvantage. I'm actually handicapped because the paper is just basically tape flat to the drawing desk, and it's not movable. So it makes the drawing that much harder, and sometimes things come out kind of weird in my eyes. So I remember reading Daredevil in the 80s by Frank Miller. She had this really cool this jumpsuit, this skin tight jumpsuit with where she can pop her collar up. Yeah, it's actually funny as I drew her eyes in. She looks more and more like Charlize Theron. I'm just shading in, doing the basic shade because Black Widow, her outfit is black. Just because the outfit is black doesn't mean you can't add texture and other details to it. Yeah, the hair looked a little off, so I just had to kind of erase all of that stray marks and give it that hair that extra crisp line. So I'm just rubbing the graphite in to give it a more of a softer overall tone. by rubbing the graphite in, it has a nice dark gray foundation essentially, and then and I can go in and start adding the little folds, and stuff like that, the little wrinkles around the joint area, which makes that drawing kind of pop. Yes, I realized that I drew her fingers a little too long. Give her like the long E.T. Arsenio Hall fingers. So I can go in and kind of like modify them, shorten them. The artist who drew just absolutely amazing hands was Neil Adams. Man, that guy could draw hands. Well, that guy could draw anything. And Neil was the absolute master of his craft. So I'm just darkening the clothes. Another artist that always impressed the hell out of me was Bernie Wrightson. He had just such a light touch. He can just like feather the ink line, you know, give it that soft feathering just with his brush. Absolute master. Now Frazetta had the same thing. Frazetta was just absolutely just had such a very soft, light touch. He can just like feather things. Have this really delicate feathered ink lines with a brush. Now I tried using a brush when I first started out in this career, but I just got too impatient. I could do it, but it's just like I just it's just too tedious for me. And then I discovered Micron Pigma pens, which has a flexible nib, so it behaves like a brush sometimes. Or you can just use it, if you want just like a nice even line, But if you want like a nice juicy tapered line that flares out, then you can put pressure on it. So once I discovered Micron Pigma pen, I just completely just stopped using a brush, because brush is just too tedious, and it's just time consuming, because like after you finish using it, you have to clean it, or it will lose the suppleness and the tip. So I don't know how guys like Al Williamson. Now Al Williamson was another absolute master and a genius when it comes to ink brush technique. So those guys I would just like look at all the time. And another master, modern master, is Mark Schultz. So Mark Schultz does this beautiful split hair technique. Which he basically was inspired by, what was that artist's name? Dan Smith. So Dan Smith was a beautiful brush artist from the turn of the century. I think it was like 1920s, around there. So he would do these great, beautiful illustration for newspaper. That's why a lot of his artwork hasn't survived, because he did it for newspapers. So newspapers back then and still now are printed in these very cheap pulp paper, and so it doesn't last. So that's why nobody really knows and heard about Dan Smith. And Dan Smith was absolutely one of the most important artists of the early 20th century. I mean, I would put him up there with Franklin Booth and J.C. Call. He had just absolute, just breathtaking mastery and command of the brush. So I'm going and just adding the shadows, the light and shadow and the highlights. Add the kneecap. So the trick to penciling and inking like tight black clothing is you basically darken the outer edges, and in the inner part, that's where the highlight is because everything is kind of curved. So when a curved figure always have like a highlight in the middle and dark shadows in the outer edges. So once you kind of have that basic rule of thumb in mind, inking or shading black costume is kind of easy. Oh, the guy who does absolute incredible latex is Adam Hughes. Oof, man, that guy is untouchable. Yeah, so every time I see his, if I'm stuck on something, I tend to look at Adam stuff to see how he did it, and and Adam is another absolutely incredible artist. I think Adam Hughes is, I think, the best artist of my generation of comic book artists. It's kind of funny because I think he could have been like one of the biggest comic book artists of the decade because like every decade has a superstar artist. And in the 60s, it was Jack Kirby. In the 70s, it was Neil Adams. In the 80s, it was John Byrne. And the 90s, I like to think of it as the Image Comics because everyone was aping Image Comic style. So there weren't a big standout artist. It's more like a company. So 90s was Image Comics, and 2000, I don't know, I thought it could have been Joe Mad. Joe Mad, I think it was between Joe Mad and Jim Lee, I thought. And Adam. I thought Adam Hughes would have been the big artist of that decade. But he just didn't do enough work. And then 2010, I would say Stuart Eminem. I mean, Stuart came, which is funny because Stuart was inspired by influenced by Adam Hughes, and then he basically took Adam Hughes' style, simplified it, and just made it his own. And then so, I mean, I think Stuart is the best comic book artist in the last 15 years. I mean, this guy was just unstoppable because I mean, he was just like, to me, he was just like the top. I mean, because he was one, talented, he was fast, able to meet deadlines, and three, he was easy to work with. So I'm trying to think who the next generation after Stewart, the next artist of the decade. I think there's two guys I've been kind of like eyeing who I think might be the big artist that will influence the next generation. I think is Sean Gordon Murphy and God, what was his name? Warren Johnson. So I think those two guys are the next big superstar. So going back, I think if Adam Hughes did a little bit more work, I think he would have been the big artist of the decade. So there I'm adding the Black Widow symbol. Just adding more folds and little details. And the zipper. Okay, so I realized I screwed up. I forgot to give her the belt. She has that little belt made of a little tiny disc, which are little bombs. As I was finishing this, I realized, oh man, I just completely forgot, and I just didn't feel like, I was about to turn off the camera, and then that's when I realized. So anyway, so I did screw up, so I should have added the belt. Maybe next time. But I think overall, I mean, this whole drawing came out pretty decent. So I'm just erasing the highlights in that in the black outfit. Again, just really have fun, get dirty, get messy during the pencil stage. This is always to me the most fun part of drawing, the initial just drawing and just drawing and sketching stage. So I thought the background was a little kind of empty and kind of boring, so I decided to add some little bit of a smoke, like she just like had like a smoke bomb thrown, and so she's coming out of the smoke, just darkening her eyes, eyebrows, and her eyelashes. Just reinforcing the lines and the mouth. And there it is. Black Widow. Hope you guys enjoyed it.